Hey everyone, coach at Higher Running and Hoka Athletes, Canaday here with another Training Talk Tuesday. I believe this is episode number 40. Thanks so much for all your top voted questions and comments from several weeks ago. I'm still playing catch up here, but hope you're doing well. We're going to dive right into the top voted question. It is, always need good form reminders. One common refrain I see a read about is maintaining good form when running slowly. Maybe I'm overthinking it too much, but I find that I often experience some level of discomfort during easy runs that I don't experience during tempo or speed runs. With good form ranging from positioning to cadence to stride length, etc., what should actually be changing to allow us to run slower, and what should we not sacrifice by running slower? Is it a slower cadence and shorter stride length? If so, how low can you go before other issues like vertical oscillation become a problem? Any help is appreciated. So great question there about running form and the body position in my last Training Talk Tuesday, official one. And, I'm going to break this down into three parts. The first thing we're going to talk about is the idea that your speed and your cadence, or how many steps you take in a minute, your stride rate, there's a correlation there, right? Generally, when we're running on a flat, uniform surface, right, not a technical trail, flat track or road or treadmill, but in distance running paces between 5K to marathon pace, for a lot of people, that ideal stride rate, and I've done whole Training Talk videos on this, cadence is give or take 180 steps per minute. It could be 165 to 170 for you. It could be 190. But generally, that's kind of the range we're looking at for optimum efficiency. Now, that's really the first point, is efficiency. We talk about efficiency, you think of it in terms of like fuel efficiency on your car, right? How many gallons per, or liters of fuel per kilometer, gallons per mile, miles per gallon that you're going as you're driving your car. Well, it's the same thing with the human body, right? Are you a Mustang or a Prius? That's a chapter in our Sage Running Secret book. But, you think of it in terms of oxygen utilization, but also fat burning efficiency, carbohydrate, glycogen burning efficiency, not developing too much lactate so that we slow down at faster paces. It's a matter of efficiency. How efficient are you? And a lot of that comes down to things like your running form, and a lot of your running form efficiency comes down to how you're hitting the ground and how you're pushing off the ground and coordinating these muscles. And so that comes down to your stride rate, cadence, but also at what angle you may be landing at. If you're overstriding too much and you have too slow of a cadence, you might be heel striking. That's not as efficient. It also is more of an injury risk generally. So that's why we have those numbers. There's a lot of internal things going on too with running efficiency, though, with heart and lung adaptations and other things that you don't see, the mitochondria, but that's another talk all in together. So, one reason why we try to optimize our stride rate or cadence, how many steps we take in a minute, is because we're trying to optimize that efficiency and reduce the risk for injury. And at slower speeds, that is harder a lot of times. Now, slower speeds, let's say we're talking about slower than marathon race pace. A recovery run could be a minute per mile, 40 seconds per kilometer slower than marathon pace, or even slower than that, 2 minutes per mile, 90 seconds per kilometer slower than marathon pace. It almost gets awkward. It almost gets awkward because we're jogging so slowly. We're trying to keep our heart rate low. We're not breathing too hard, but we're kind of out of sync with our steps. And it becomes harder to keep our stride rate or cadence up over 160 steps per minute. Now, talk about vertical oscillation, the up and down movement of when it becomes inefficient. For a lot of people, under 160 steps per minute, I will say. This is running on the flats, though, not uphill. Uphill, you could easily drop below that, but running on a flat uniform surface, around marathon pace or a little slower, 160 steps per minute, kind of a low minimum. If you're in the 150s, you're probably going too slow. You could probably benefit from trying to get a faster cadence going, over 160 steps per minute. It doesn't have to be 180 at slow speeds. That might be awkwardly hard for you, but 160s, 170s, usually more ideal for most people. And because you're going slower, it's harder to land under your center of gravity unless you take really short steps. And if you're getting that cadence going fast, you're minimizing the stress of the impact force, right? If you think quick, light feet, pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter, you're landing with less impact force, and you're also probably landing, you're not heel striking as bad, right? And we take that to an extreme level. If you go into a stride or you go out into a 100-meter all-out sprint, especially barefoot, a barefoot 100-meter sprint, you're not going to be heel striking. You're going to have really good form probably if you have to sprint really fast for 100 meters, right? You're probably going to be landing more on the ball of your foot. You're going to be springing off your calves and using your hamstrings more, using your glutes, and not thrashing your arms side to side, because you might even have your blades out and be going like, you know, T1000 or 2000, whatever, Terminator reference there. Blades out. Not good distance running form always, unless you're kicking at the end of the race. But then if you're sprinting, you usually have really good form. So that's point number 2, speed work. That's a big reason why we do speed work. Speed work, tempo runs, track intervals, kilometer repeats. Think 5K pace and faster, strides, hill sprints. 5K pace and faster, it's, you know, to get the heart rate up and to get the lungs breathing hard and to get those things that are occurring inside the body. But it's also a neuromuscular coordination thing where we develop a lot of muscle power, coordination. We're getting the legs moving probably over 180 steps per minute, running, you know, 1,500-meter race pace, mile race pace on a flat track or a flat road. You might be over that 180 steps per minute. You might be closer to 200 steps per minute if you're sprinting. And that's really good. That's really good because it teaches good form. It teaches the body, hey, we could turn over this fast. And hopefully it makes slower race paces like marathon pace or ultra marathon pace or even our easy day pace feel a little more smooth and efficient because we've developed this power at the neuromuscular level. So, you know, getting in speed work, a lot of it has to do with improving our running form, and a lot of it has to do with running at a faster pace. Now, the third and final point I'm making, and I've done a whole talk on this as well, what changes the most when we're changing speeds as a distance runner, right? We're going from 1,500-meter race pace, mile race pace, racing fast, right? Maybe a sprint, to marathon or ultra marathon race pace. The number one thing that should change more, I should say, is your stride length, right? As you start running faster, you need to open up your stride more and run with more power. It's harder to sustain though because it takes more power and more energy out of you, right? So that's why you go to a track and you start sprinting all out. You might not make it 400 meters. You're going to start tying up in lactate pool, probably after about 35, 40 seconds at 100% sprint, right? So, but you're running with good form. You're running with good form. And the whole idea is that as we get faster, we have a better aerobic system to support our top speed. We start running a marathon at a higher percentage of our top speed, right? If I could run a marathon at 80% of our top speed, that's going to be pretty good, 85%, right? The elites, that's the difference, is they start running the marathon close to, 90% of their maximum heart rate. So you're running closer to max speed as you get better. But the difference with form and cadence or stride rate, how many steps you take in a minute versus stride length, is that you don't want your cadence to have to change too much. You want the stride length, and the power is what changes. So there's a good graph in my other training talk. I'll link to it in the description below as well as up there about how that stride length ideally should change more than your cadence. And your cadence probably will have to increase as well, right? To run faster, you need faster turnover, but also a longer stride. But relative to each other, it's the stride length that changes more. The cadence may go from 170 steps per minute to 190 steps per minute, but the stride length may go from 1.2 meters to 1.5 meters. It's a bigger marginal increase, is what I'm saying, compared to your cadence. So as you run slower on your easier recovery days, you still try to keep that cadence up, right? Maybe it's not over 170 steps per minute, but it's over 160 steps per minute. and you do that to minimize impact force, it might take some concentration. Neuromuscularly, you might have to train yourself to think quick and light, but it's better generally to take quick and light steps as a distance runner than to try to muscle your way through and overpower it and overstride, because you're heel striking, you're usually not as efficient, it could hurt your running economy, and it's just a big injury risk. So that's kind of my talk on the running form. Again, I've broken it down in that other training talk, but thanks so much for everyone for subscribing on here. Again, I do Training Talk Tuesdays. More vlogs, race updates, training updates coming your way. You guys comment below with future Training Talk topics that you would like to hear about. Top voted question will get my answer next week. In-depth Training Talk Tuesday. Thank you so much to all the Patreon supporters for really making this channel possible, as well as title sponsor Hoka, keeping the dream alive, any surface, any distance. Check out our training plans at higherrunning.com. Coach Sandy and I sell training plans also for any service, any distance. Thanks so much. Hope you're doing well. And thanks to the Patreon supporters again for making this channel possible. Stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.